ونتشرف الآن بدعوة المتحدث الرئيسي للمؤتمر Professor Armin Trost, author, speaker and consultant لتقديم جلسته تحت عنوان Current and Future Trends in HR. Professor Armin, the floor is yours.
So now you can hear me. Okay, let's start again. Okay. I've been with HR for about 30 years, and I probably made the same mistake over and over again for many, many years, starting with solutions. We in HR, we love solutions. We love to implement new feedback systems, new compensation systems, new AI tools, new development system, new leadership development systems, and we love it, yeah? We come home from a conference and we learn something and say, this is something I also want in my organization. So we set up a project team that takes care for the operational design, how do we do things, then we implement it. And very often we find what we call unintended consequences. Things don't work very often as they are supposed to do. That's a typical experience in HR, that things don't work as they should work. So, okay, we continue with our new solution, and after a couple of years we ask ourselves, hey, what's the problem? Why do we do this thing anyway? Why do we do this performance appraisal? Why do we do this employee survey every year? Can everybody tell us? So this is a typical way, and I would propose the opposite. We always should start with a problem, always. What is the problem that we want to solve for our employees, for our supervisors, and eventually for our customers? And then the next thing is we have to understand what is the context in which we are doing our things. And based on this, we can then define the strategy and then the operational design. So I will follow up on the later path. This is my mantra since years. Always start with a problem, then look at the context. And I will talk about the context pretty much, because the context is changing, and it will also change in the future. So that's the path to go. Let me start with the problem. Be clear about the problem in HR. Now, one problem is we need people. Right? We have some recruiting demands, but a recruiting demand is not a problem. We have to be clear about what is the problem. Even so, we face talent shortage. So, for instance, let me be a little bit academic for a moment. Some demands that we have in recruiting are of high strategic relevance. We don't want to hire good people, we want to hire the best people, right? For our key functions. Some people are very, very easy to be hired because of high talent availability, and some are very hard to be hired because of low availability. Sometimes you need many people of the same sort, sometimes you need just one person of a special kind. So, and then we have very different scenarios. Let me pick out a few. This is one. We need good people, they are available. Okay, easy. Do job ads. Job ads do the trick. Executive search. You're fine looking for one person, you are looking for the best. Very hard to get, better work with executive search, for instance. This is what I call specialist hiring. Actively looking for people. This is what we call difficult mass hiring. Have an employer brand here. Do some campaigns. So you see, however you define the problem, you will come up with completely different solutions. So in HR, we really have to learn to be very precise with the articulation of the problem that we are supposed to solve. And this can go on and on and on. You can look at these different scenarios and say, learning means something completely different here on the bottom left than learning on the top right. So be clear about the problems. And we have plenty of problems. Yeah, this is just an overview of very different problems that we have, identify and leverage people potential, open long-term development opportunities, allowing a balance of work and family, being fair on compensation. These are all problems. So let us be clear about the problem. Now, let's look at the context. The context is changing. And let me have a look at the history of HR here, where we came from and where we are heading to. I think it was in the end of the last century, or maybe in the 80s, when we started to professionalize HR. We're starting to getting strategic. We implemented tools, processes, systems, and other things. And Dave Ulrich appeared on the stage, you know. And then came digitization. And then we had to handle a new working reality, agility, resilience, and we learned that the classic HR might not work anymore, and we have to change things. And we had to balance stability on one side with agility on the other side. And we started to question traditional HR as we find it in the textbook. I will talk much about this part. And then came COVID. And then we were faced with a new normal. And a lot of other things appeared. This is certainly a Western perspective, I must admit, but things like well-being became very prominent. Woke culture, retention. We more and more talk about compassionate, empathetic leadership in HR and all the like. And the future will be about artificial intelligence. And this future will be extremely unclear. So this is how the context changed, not just within HR, but in the whole business world. So let me start on the left-hand side. This is how companies looked like in the early age of industrialization, right? Organizations were very clear-cut. We had clear organization. We had our jobs defined everywhere, and when somewhere a job became vacant, find another person for this job, and the job in HR was to have the right people at the right time at the right place. That's it. I mean, in old textbooks, you find exactly this definition. Right people, right time, right place. That's it. Okay? Now, what we did at this time was we just took care for hire and pay. We hired the people and we compensated the people at the right time, at the right place, full stop. But it was merely an operational administrative task. It was easy, okay? So, and then through the phases of professionalization, we implemented things, systems, processes, tools. We became more professional. And what many companies did at that time was they moved into a corner which I call central planning and control. This is what we could observe in the last few decades. As HR, we try to take over responsibility for all the things that are people related. We are responsible for the development of the people. We are responsible for the learning of the people. We are responsible for the retention of the people. We are responsible for the health of the people. We are responsible for the diversity of the workforce. We are responsible for a satisfaction of the workforce. We are responsible for everything. That was the idea at that time. So we put everything on our shoulders as the HR function. This is what we did. And that led to something that I would like to illustrate. Yeah? Here is a hierarchy. So the first thing that we did was create a competence model, describing what is teamwork, creative thinking, strategic thinking, problem solving, all the like. We added some behaviorally anchored rating scale to it to understand the different competencies. We created job architecture, looked what are the different jobs in our organization. We created job profiles on this, so that we had every job described based on competencies and proficiency levels. These are documented in job descriptions, and then we linked all the job profiles to the different positions in the organization so that we knew, okay, this job here is a marketing expert, so here you need certain competencies on certain levels. Now we need people, so we translate the job profile into a job ad, and then here we are. Here are the people. The people have a job profile, an employee profile, and hopefully the employee profiles match with the job profiles when we have done a good job. So, and above everything, we have a strategy. And when we have a strategy, we also want to know how many people do we need, of which competencies, where, in what years. This is what we call strategic workforce planning. To translate the strategy into practice, we have maybe something like a balanced scorecard. The balanced scorecard cascades all the objectives from top down and all the requirements. To do so, we have a performance appraisal, of course. One result of performance appraisal, of course, are the development plans and job performance evaluation and all the like. And when we combine the performance evaluation with potential evaluation, we find who are the high potentials in the organization. Yeah? And we can put these high potentials into a 360-degree feedback to understand the strengths and weaknesses of all those people so that we can put them on certain predefined career paths. And when we do this over and over again, what we call talent management, we always have successors for our key positions in the organization. Many people are involved in all this, so we need a kind of HR information system that allows us to have some analytics. So, I'm done. Yeah. This is HR as we dreamed it in the last centuries. It's a simplified picture of modern HR. And most of the things are still missing. Compensation is missing. Learning is missing. So this is the whole machine that allowed us in HR to take responsibility for nearly everything. Okay, nice. Some things in the world are complicated. They have to be, maybe. Fine. But now happened the following. We moved from central planning and control to what we call more people-centered enablement. We wanted to enable the people so that the people themselves take responsibility for their development. They take responsibility for their learning. The teams take over responsibility for hiring new colleagues. The employees got responsible for their health. So, and the idea of HR was to enable them, not to take over responsibility for everything. So, if there is an employee, yeah, Joe, and say, Joe, I want to develop. As HR, you would say, yeah, you want to develop, that's cool. We want to have people who develop. So go ahead, develop yourself. Take opportunities and grow. Take the chances, take over responsibility. Why did that occur, this people-centered enablement? Because the world did change. Because this static, big machine was too static. Not resilient enough. Yeah? The world changes in many ways, so the tasks that we do, that our people do, are no more of this kind, where the outcome is clear and the process is clear, where the people exactly know what to do. Our people, they work more and more on this kind of tasks, big tasks, where the outcome is unclear and the process to get there is unclear. And then we have tasks in between. So we had to get used to a situation that already this great management thinker and philosopher Mike Tyson described when he said, everybody's got a plan till they get punched in the mouth. So that, with the disruption, digitization, and all the complexity, it became very, very difficult to predict things. We found situations where we don't have the old model anymore. The big T manager, with much general knowledge, much expertise, yeah, and employees who are just like the manager but a little bit smaller. And the manager is the one who gives direction, knows everything, is the master in the team. we move to a situation where we have rather this, where our supervisors have some overview, yeah, maybe some rudimentary expertise in some area, but the people are the experts, and the people know more, have more understanding about what they are doing than their managers. And then we have other models on the right side. I don't want to talk about this one. But, I mean, just think about performance appraisal. Think about just performance review. How can a manager who has not a deep understanding about what their people are doing, how can they do a performance review? How can they give feedback? From whom do the people learn here? They learn from each other. In this model, they learned from their manager, from the master, from the mentor. So all these things changed. We also learned that the role of the supervisors changed. In old times, we had the bosses. The bosses knew everything. They told the people what to do, how to do things, and then they controlled what they did. That was fine. That worked very well and still works in some areas. But now we see more and more supervisors who act like coaches, who push back the responsibility, who tell the people, hey, what would you do? Please come up with a recommendation, with an idea, a proposal. You encourage people to think. Or as manager, you work together with your people like a partner. You sit at a table and say, okay, let's solve this problem all together. Or you act as an enabler. You ask yourself, how can I support my people so that they can do a good job? So what we see really is that we move away from bosses towards partner, coach, enabler. The old approaches in HR, as we find them in textbooks and as they are still taught in many business schools, they are pretty much built around the bosses and are not compatible with the newer manager roles. So this is changing. And we all know that the world is very connected, things are connected, people are connected, and we also have to understand that connected markets, products, and services require connected organizations. So we have to mirror the outside reality in the market inside the organization, get away from departments to networks. So, to summarize, this is a static world. People mainly work on certain predictable tasks. They are led by super competent bosses within divided organizations. This is the agile world. Highly competent people which work on uncertain, disruptive tasks are led by coaches, partners, and enablers within connected organizations. You know, and the idea is that HR in the left world is a completely different story than HR on the right-hand world. It must be. It must be. And so we are in the midst of this transformation. And we move from the left side to the right side, and so does HR. And I'd just like to give you some examples on what that means. For instance, when we talk about strategy, in the static world, we would say, as a company, we have a responsibility to develop our most talented people. That is something that we would have described over many, many years. We in HR are responsible for the development of our most talented people. Fine. But in a more agile world, you would subscribe the right side. You would say the responsibility for the development of our employees lies with the employees themselves. We enable them for this where necessary and where desired. Completely different story. And when you think of a talent management of the left side, it probably will look different than a talent management that focuses on the right side. We can have a whole workshop about this. Learning in the past was learning requires a protected area outside the daily work environment, a learning facility or so, and then we hoped for the transfer of learning into the real world. No. In the agile world, there is no difference between work and learn, because learning happens through creating knowledge. Learning is best done in a real working context. We see no difference between learning and work. Whenever you develop new things, whenever you cope with uncertainty, you learn, and that's what you do at work. Or let's think of objective setting as part maybe of your performance management. In the past, objectives are agreed individually with each employee, of course, in the daily performance appraisal session. And this ensures personal commitment and clear responsibility. Good idea. Absolutely good idea. Works best in a static world. In an agile world, you would never subscribe this. You would say, performance is only achieved by whole teams. And this is why performance expectations, be it objectives, results, priorities, or whatsoever, are only defined with teams as a whole. You know, again, just these two statements describe completely two different understandings of performance appraisal. This would be another workshop that we could do a whole day. Let's think about feedback. In the past, we always said employees receive feedback primarily from their immediate supervisor. That's the supervisor's job, right? In an agile world, you would not say so. You would say, no, employees primarily and actively ask for feedback from their customers, not from their supervisors, from their customers and colleagues. So in an agile world, you have the right-hand version of feedback system. You know, this goes on and on and on and on. I wrote a whole book about this called Human Resources Strategies. I compared the left side with the right side, and we are in the midst of this transformation. Also, in terms of compensation, individual bonuses work very good in sales, for instance. In a divided world, we motivate with individual variable incentives. While in an agile world, you would rather not do this. You would hire people with a good base pay and make sure that the people get money out of their mind as quick as possible. Okay, and then came COVID. We were in the midst of this transformation. Very, very exciting time. Still going on, reinventing HR for an agile world in times of digitization. And then, bam, came COVID. And that did a lot of us. I mean, what I find, and this is more a feeling I must say, is that through COVID, we got the idea that we have to put people in the center. This is something that I hear all the time. We have to put people in the center. I could ask you, would you agree that we should put people in the center? I don't ask you now, but I would suppose, and whenever I did, I get the result that, yes, we agree that we should put people in the center. But what does that mean? And I told you what I understand about putting people in the center. I understand it: empower people, enable people, give them responsibility, give them freedom, give them choices, give them the room so that they can come up with good ideas, translate ideas into reality, that people face risks and takes the risk, that they not only have ideas but also fight for their ideas instead of sitting on a chair waiting for HR to develop them. You know, this is empowerment and enable. That is the idea of the responsible adult seeking for success. You know, this is the picture I have about human beings in my mind. And this idea of putting people in the center now got a new direction, as far as I can tell from many, many debates. I see more kind of caring and coddling. And the idea behind caring and coddling is the fragile, demanding infant seeking for well-being. So, what we hear are things like employee experience, safe spaces, compassionate HR leadership. In the Western world, trigger warning, environmental, social governance, diversity, inclusion, equity, working from home, from the bed, yeah, appreciation and happiness, workation. It's a combination of vacation and work, 4-day weeks and all the like. You know, when I see all these things, I really have this impression this is about caring and coddling. And let me say some words about this. First, of course, we now thought about how can we get the people back into the offices? How can we make that we don't lose them? Retention became a big topic, and it still is. And this is a big topic. Let me share just two things, two ideas. And the end is still not in sight, but two ideas that might inspire your thinking about this whole thing. First, of course, we want attractive external conditions. This is the upper side. This is heaven, right? Heaven. This is what we want to offer as employers. And then there are the unattractive external conditions. This is hell. And we want to be heaven, not hell. And our people want to have heaven, not hell. Sure. But there is another thing that we call self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is the belief of people that they can change things. If they don't have this feeling, they are low on self-efficacy. If they have this belief, then they are high on self-efficacy. Now we have the following situations: victimhood, resignation, being in hell, you cannot change anything. This is what you don't want, right? We want the vivid company, heaven, where we can change things. But now comes the interesting part. Do we want to have this, the wellness zone, where everything is heaven, but you know, you did not change anything, you did not contribute to this, and you're just, you know, you're like the customer. Employees as the customer of the organization. Wow! Or is it that you want to have this? People who might find themselves in hell, but they know they can change something. The whole research that we know in psychology, and I'm a psychologist, tell us that this is not what you want, the paradise. This is what you want. The path is the goal. You know, we can talk about this now for hours, but it's simply not true to say that you have to offer a paradise so that you attract the people and you retain the people. No, you have to offer an environment where people can make a difference. That does the trick. That does the trick. And I know many organizations, many CEOs, where the executives told me, the last thing I want are satisfied people. I don't want satisfied people. I want people who are unsatisfied but know how to change things. That's something we could think of for a moment. And then there is the other idea that whenever we lose people, we ask ourselves, why did we lose people? What did we do wrong? You know, did we pay enough? Didn't we offer cool career perspectives? And we think about our own responsibility in why we're losing people. Be careful. I ask in a survey, in a recent study, we asked people who thought about changing their career, but then did not. You know, these are people who were close to changing their career, but then they remained with their current employer. And we asked, why did you stay? Why would you have left? And you see now a rank of the balance between why did I stay and why would I left? And on top of the list is relationship with colleagues, relationship with direct managers. This is on top of the list. This is why people stay. People stay because of the relation they have to their colleagues and to their supervisors. Why do they leave? Because salary, salary development, and task. We can summarize, and that might be a good theory to summarize. People stay because of the soft things, and they leave because of the hard things. So, whenever we think about working from home, working at offices, whatever you do, make sure that the people keep their relation. That they have this level of belonging, feeling, being part of a team. And this will continue this debate. This is where we are. I will not talk about the future of artificial intelligence. We're going to have plenty of time over this conference to talk about this. I'm also not an expert on that one, but I'm very curious what will be ahead of us for this moment. I thank you very much for your time, and I wish you a nice remaining day. Thank you.